Well, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome you into Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short and Tim Short, the father-son team and the financial advisors behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find out more about Ralph and Tim, the entire team, over there on their website, welcomehomefp.com, or give a call, set up a time to speak with them as well. Complimentary conversation. We're going to throw that out there, 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. 3 offices in the Richmond location. That number will get you where you need to be. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined, as I am every show, with Ralph and Tim. Gentlemen, it's good to see you again. How you doing today?
Doing phenomenal.
Great. How are you?
How about you?
Doing well, thank you. Ralph, we'll get into it, but I heard you had a little bit of a tussle earlier this week with some. Well, we'll let you tell the story.
No bear attacks.
No bear attacks. Everybody stay safe out there, but appreciate you spending time with us. You know, what is the saying? Neither rain nor sleet nor hail nor bear attacks will keep us from doing our job. So appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners here. Let's go ahead and dive right in and address the fact that technology now touches almost every part of investing, from trading platforms to algorithms to, yes, AI-driven tools. But New York Stock Exchange President Lynn Martin tells Fox Business the human element still very much matters.
We've got the state-of-the-art technology, which processes more than 1.2 trillion messages a day. But importantly, we have those 3 layers of defense on top of it, which is the human judgment. The humans can step in when things start to look a bit off, when there's additional volatility in the market. And the humans here do that every single day.
So if the New York Stock Exchange still needs people to step in when something feels off, what does that say about investors that are trying to make big financial decisions on their own?
Well, I think, technology is a tremendous tool. Everybody, is using technology to some degree or some point. But the New York Stock Exchange recognizes that there are moments when human judgment matters. And that's where, it kind of is left up to the fiduciary advisors like we are to make sure that, we can combine those numbers with the human side and also the tech side and help clients understand their choices. There's going to be challenges, but also too is assumptions is something that our computers rely on quite a bit. And we want to make sure that our decisions are based on long-term planning rather than just some sort of headline or emotion. And, there's, once again, a lot of people use ChatGPT. We've actually we've had a few people call in from ChatGPT and say, hey, I was just Googling but ChatGPT and financial advisors, and your name's popped up. And that's one of those things that, a lot of people have gotten into. And but it's important still to have that human touch, that human quality, because I know we've said it before, if you're using technology or ChatGPT or whatever the case may be, and things don't go the way that you want them to go, well, then who do you hold accountable, right? I mean, I guess you literally could take your laptop and throw it out the window if you like, but then there's going to be some other issues there. So that's where I think, once again, is having that human touch, that human technique, because look, things are going to change. And, if you don't put in what you need to put in for the data, and now the technology is spitting back numbers based off of numbers that weren't good, that's where it's important to have that human aspect. So, but also too, you've got the ability to bounce questions off and so on and so forth. So once again, technology is a tremendous tool, but we got to make sure we still have that human touch, because there's going to be accountability there.
Yeah, and I would say number one thing is, technology is wonderful when you know how to use it. And like Tim said just a minute ago, if you put in information that may not help you solve the issue that you have, such as, what happens if the market crashes right before you start thinking about taking out money? How's that going to affect you? I mean, most people are great at saving money if they have a 401k, things like that. But retirement is going to be completely different. And if you don't ask the right question to your technology partner or whoever, whatever you want to call him, then you may not get the right answer. And then all of a sudden, what has happened? You could say, hey, my retirement did look good until I didn't have my 12% return that everybody told me I could get. I'm only getting 5 or 6 and I'm taking 8 or 10 out. Guess what happens? Even ChatGPT cannot correct those issues, garbage in, garbage out. And, a lot of things you need to, to kind of take back and saying, a 20% drop in the market or your investments, whatever you want to call it, at age 45 is completely different than if it happened at age 65. And technology is not going to help you if you don't quite understand the difference there. So that's why, like Tim says, as fiduciaries, we explain to people how this is going to affect you in retirement. And I would say everybody that you don't know what you don't know. And why don't you just kind of give us a call for a second opinion, not because you may be doing something wrong, but because maybe retirement's too important for you to discover you made a mistake after you retired. That's the important thing about the human element. We can kind of look at things and say, hey, we think you're okay, but if you did this, you might be better. But you have to know the right questions to ask that technology partner of yours.
Yeah, and Chris, I think what's important too is there's a lot of people, a lot of investors now that are DIYers, right? They do it themselves. Well, it's easy to overlook things like taxes and healthcare costs and substantial withdrawals, and probably most importantly, the emotions when the markets get rough, right? So I think that also too is, if you're doing it yourself, you don't know what you don't know, just like Dad said, but we want to make sure that we've got that human element. And hey, there's probably a lot of people out there listening that are doing really good things, but there could be some things that need some attention. And if you're not taking a look at it, if you don't have a fiduciary looking at it for you, you might not be able to tweak or improve those types of things.
I can say with some degree of certainty, I try not to do absolutes here on the show, but I can say that ChatGPT or whatever the AI platform that you're using, they're not fiduciaries, not acting solely in the client's best interest. What did you say, Ralph? Garbage in, garbage out. It is as useful as what you put into there. And you may phrase your questions, you may put the information in that will give you that sunny outlook. Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we all want. But what about the other factors, the X factors, taxes, healthcare, estate planning, a volatile market? What is that going to look like? That is where you definitely need that human element and a team like Ralph Short and Tim Short, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, who will let you know if you're doing well. They'll let you know, stay the course, great job. But if there is a tweak here or there that needs to be made, they'll bring that to the table. And if there is more than just a little tweak here and there, if it needs to be built from the ground up, they'll let you know that as well. But they can't help you unless you reach out and set up a time to speak with them. It is a complimentary time to drop into any one of their 3 offices right here in the Richmond area. But that number is 804-635-3550. 804-635-3550, or go online to the website welcomehomefp.com. New York City is proposing what is known as and I'm going to butcher this, I apologize to all of our French-speaking listeners, pied-à-terre tax, a tax aimed at certain high-value second homes. As a matter of fact, city officials recently published a database showing thousands of properties that could potentially be affected. So whether you agree with the tax or not, it's not really the point for retirees. The bigger takeaway is that tax policy is a moving target. Sometimes it's a new property tax, sometimes it's income taxes, the state tax, or Medicare rules. How do you guys build a retirement plan that is flexible enough to adapt when the tax rules change?
Well, Chris, I'll tell you, one thing we can't predict is what Congress or lawmakers will do over the next 10, 20, maybe 30 years from now. So we don't want a retirement plan that only works under today's tax rules. Because once again, if we had the crystal ball and we knew where tax rates were going to be throughout the future, then it makes it easy. But we don't have the crystal ball, right? So one approach is tax diversification, making sure that we've got money potentially available from taxable or tax deferred or even tax-free sources that can give you more choices about where retirement income comes from. Because once again, as we know where tax rates currently are, if they stay the same, this might be a moot point. But on the same side, is odds are if tax rates do change, they're probably going to increase. And, like we had talked about previously, is we want to make sure that we get to keep as much as we can, right?
Right.
A lot of people that are do-it-yourself, they don't think about taxes because, let's be honest, taxes aren't the most sexy thing to talk about. But if we're American and there is a cost to our freedom, and that's what taxes look like, right? So it kind of depends on how you're going to save your money as well, because a lot of people ask nowadays why they didn't use Roths throughout their years. Well, through their working years, but they haven't been around for forever. And some people make too much money potentially to contribute to a Roth and so on. So there's a lot of things there. But, we help clients look at different tax buckets and build flexibility into their income strategies, because when tax rates or tax rules do change, having options can be extremely valuable. And that's where it's not just about the investments when it comes to retirement. It's about taxes. There's a lot that goes into that. And once again, is we want to make sure that we're not building the plan off only today's rules. We need to take a look at. Now, we can't plan for every possible scenario, but it is important to not just pick one scenario.
And I would say probably the biggest retirement mistake that we probably see is waiting too long to think about taxes in retirement. It's not when you retire, you need to start thinking about that. You need to have a game plan a little bit before then so you can say, hey, should I be taking Roth conversions right now, the first 2 or 3 years of retirement, or should I wait till later on? Or, how's it going to affect my RMDs later down the road? I mean, those are all questions that you need to be thinking about when it comes to start drawing your money out. And like Tim said, if you have options, those are things that definitely will help you decide to keep you in a lower tax bracket, unless you want to give everything that you've made all your life away to the government, who really spends your money not the way you wanted to, right, Chris? I mean, last time I sent that check to the IRS, they didn't ask me how to spend it. They just said, give it to me so we can do what we want to with it. So, and the other thing, I think I want to ask Tim this question is, you made a statement about the congressman and the government or whoever it is about how much work they do. I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know that they did anything, because they always talk about doing something, but I hadn't really seen a lot coming out. So we'll discuss that a little bit later, right, Chris?
Absolutely. Nice work if you can get it. But here's the thing. We were given a gift in the form of the extension of the tax code that went into effect, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, with the One Big Beautiful Bill last year, making the tax code as it stands permanent. But I think we all know in Washington, permanent is lowercase p, written in pencil. Probably not going to be that way forever. It is right now. It is okay. But we are currently $39 trillion in debt. I think by the end of the month, we will be $40 trillion in debt. That money is going to have to come from somewhere in the future. And so having a plan in place, again, can't predict all the possibilities out there, but having a plan that is flexible, like that retirement roadmap that you guys build for your clients. If we veer off course, if Congress pulls us off course, how do we get back on track to where we want to be? Well, if you've got that roadmap in place, you take it to account, that changes will happen. And more often than not, those changes going to be a little expensive. So set up a time to speak with Ralph and Tim if you are unsure, or if you are sure about where taxes are going to head in the future and you want to make sure you get to keep as much of your money. Because I dare say you probably have better plans for it than what they might in Washington. Set up a time to speak with them. It is complimentary, 804-635-3550. Or you can go to the website, set up a time there as well, welcomehomefp.com. As you move towards retirement, you might try to teach your replacements at work everything you know. But let's flip that, actually. What are some things that retirees can learn from those that are still working? Is it difficult to keep your clients financially engaged?
No, I don't think it's difficult, but retirement doesn't mean that your financial life stops, right? I mean, I think, your money may still need to grow a little bit. I mean, we should all concentrate on getting some growth. That doesn't mean we need to be foolish with it, but, your retirement could last you 20 or 30 or maybe even 40 years, and inflation doesn't retire when you do, right? And I think we've heard of that word inflation over the last 6 years. If you didn't hear of it before 2020, that's on you. But ever since then, that seems to be one of those terms that, is thrown out quite a bit. And it's not going to completely derail your retirement, but it's very important. Chris, we talked to a lot of people that have a fair amount of money saved up into the bank, and that's their biggest issue at that point is inflation, because banks aren't paying a whole lot. And if inflation's at 3 or 4% and you're making 2%, well, do the math. It doesn't check, right? But retirees can also benefit from habits workers use. Maintaining emergency savings is paramount, right? Reviewing the budget regularly. And some people have never actually reviewed a budget, which is not a wise strategy, but also continuing to learn and stay engaged with their finances. And that's where, with our reviews, whether that's going to be on a quarterly basis, twice a year, once a year, whatever, these are all conversations to have with our clients. And we try to keep our clients involved in those review processes without making retirement planning feel like a second job. Most people don't want to get into retirement and pick up another job, but we have, and we can share stories of people feeling a lack of value when they don't have much to wake up to in the morning, right? So they should understand the strategy and important decisions, and we can help monitor with these moving pieces. So that's where, once again, there's a lot of folks out there that are kind of nervous because change is change, right? We don't know what change is going to look like until we get there and get through it. So just because we're striving for retirement and people get there, and sure, everybody gets a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to change because it's not going to be the same as it was today. So I think that's really important to have those conversations and still have that reason or reasons to get up in the morning.
Change means this. Change means that life is happening to you because you cannot predict the future. You just have to go with it. The old saying, go with the flow. Well, you kind of have to do that, but you need to be prepared for certain things. And one of the things that most people in retirement need to understand, either when you get closer to retirement or in retirement, money has a job. And that means your investments has a job. So what's it trying to do for you? Tries to give you a paycheck. It's a steady paycheck that you know you're going to have it coming in. You should have, like Tim said, some money that's a little bit protected. But if you get too conservative, you may not have enough money to outlast you. And that's something I don't think anybody that's listening wants to run out of money before they run out of life. The other thing, you may be too aggressive. And, we're not going to tell you one way or another what you are. You have to go through one of our processes and say, hey, based on the way you answer these questions, you may be conservative investor, you may be an aggressive investor, no matter what your age is. Now, I've got an 80-some-year-old man that has all his retirement just in the stock market, and he doesn't believe in anything else but that. But from his situation, it's probably a little bit more aggressive than he should. But, there are people that's like that. We've got clients that says, I'm not happy with my emergency fund. And I said, well, why not? Because I haven't saved as much as I want. And I said, well, how much do you want? And one person said, I want $500,000 in the bank in an emergency. I said, what kind of an emergency are you going to have? And, she laughs. And I said, well, how much do you have in the bank if you're not happy with it? And she says, I have $496,000. Then I don't think you have any worry. But, still, you need to understand what your risk tolerance is. And that's one of the things that we do go over with people and say, all right, maybe you've got too much money in the market. Maybe you should be a little bit more conservative or other way around. But, I think one of the questions I would have to everybody that's listening is, when was the last time you gave your retirement plan a performance review? Is it doing what you want it to do for you? If it's been a few years since you've done that, do you have enough money coming in or taxes being reviewed? When was the last time that somebody sat down with you and said, all right, here's your income plan, here's your investment plan, here's your tax plan, and being reviewed all at the same time so you're in pretty good shape? If you haven't had that in a while, hey, a second opinion from somebody that's a fiduciary like us might benefit you greatly.
I know there's a benefit to seeing that number, I guess, in your bank statement, but I feel like 496,000, you can go ahead and round up and say that you've done it, you've accomplished it. When you're in the working world, the purpose of those dollars in your retirement accounts is to grow, and that's it. As you get closer and closer to retirement, as you enter into retirement, you need to start thinking about having different purposes. Yes, you want that predictability, that reliability of income coming in. You still want some growth in there because, as we mentioned, inflation being what it is, and 6 years ago, they said that inflation was transitory, but I digress. It's always going to be a factor. So you do want a little bit of growth. You can't just keep it under the mattress or in the bank. But finding that right blend is going to depend on your situation. And that is why that retirement roadmap that the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners builds for their clients is personalized. It is customized to that individual, what they want to achieve, what their comfort level is with risk, their tax implication, how much they want to keep in an emergency fund, for example. But they can't help you create that plan to navigate and also be able to readjust when those changes come down the line, unless you set up a time to speak with them. 804-635-3550 to begin that complimentary conversation. Or you can go online at the website at welcomehomefp.com. If you own a business and you want the sale of that business to fund your retirement, consider this story. A gentleman named Gary owns an optometry business in Georgia with multiple locations valued at $4 million. Pretty good, I would say. About the time that he wanted to retire, however, a national chain opened some locations nearby, and his value went down to $2.5 million, which altered his retirement dreams. How do you guys help business owners deal with the timing and sale of their business to maximize their retirement?
Well, we encourage owners to build retirement assets outside of the business while also planning to exit well in advance, right? Because you don't know what your friendly neighbor is going to do down the street or what locations could be popping up wherever. So, some things that can include retirement plans, investments, and developing potential successors and buyers, right? So, we've seen situations where an owner expected to sell their business, so they provide their retirement data, and only to discover the valuation wasn't what they had anticipated. And I think there's a lot of people out there that kind of overvalue certain things, and real estate's one of them, right? Mm-hmm. So I think planning earlier gives you the ability to have more options instead of just putting all of your eggs into one basket. And the danger for business owners is having too much of their retirement tied to that business, right? So once again, the value of your business can change because of competition, the industry, the economy. I mean, there's a lot of variables to it, especially when you're not ready to sell. And, it might not be the perfect time. Chris, one of the things that we get from people is asking, when's the right time to retire, right? The answer always is going to be whenever you're financially ready. And this is kind of part of this conversation is, if you might think, hey, I want to get to 60 and now it's time for me to sell the business. Well, it's like real estate. If you don't have a buyer, then you're not going to be able to sell it. So there's a lot of things to that. It's not simply selling or buying a stock. It's going to be a much bigger acquisition, if you will. So it takes more planning. So it is very important for business owners, and they've got a lot of good opportunities, especially when it comes to retirement accounts. So take advantage of that. If you're out there, you're a business owner, and all of your net worth, so to speak, is tied to your business, well, it probably isn't the right strategy. And it's very important to focus in on things that can help you transition.
Yeah, I think one of the things that business owners, because I do some work with a lot of business owners, is, my business is my retirement plan. That may be the most dangerous sentence a business owner can utter. Because they think that everything is wonderful, but guess what? What if you don't want to do this anymore and you need to sell out? What if you can't do it anymore and you need to sell? What if you just say, hey, I am done with this? Or what happens if you can't do it anymore because you're no longer here? Well, how's that going to affect you, your loved ones, your family, whatever? Because all of a sudden, your business that you might have thought, like this guy did at $4 million, is now only worth $2 million. How's that going to affect your family? What plans do you have in place for that? You have to have plans for in case you get sick, in case of a disability, in case of losing a key employee. What if you lost a key employee that took 50% of your customers away because he had a better relationship than what you had with him? Customers, they're not locked into you. They can do whatever they want. So you have to be prepared for something like that. And the other thing that I really stress to business owners is just because you sell a business for X number of dollars doesn't mean that those X dollars are yours. Because guess what? Somebody's going to have their hand out. And Chris, it's not me, it's not Tim, and it's not you.
I will.
It's good old Uncle Sam, and he's going to take as much as he can if you're not prepared for it. You've got capital gains. You've got this tax. You've got that tax. Are you prepared to minimize those taxes? And are there ways of reducing those taxes to you or deferring? There is, but you need to find somebody like us that's able to help you navigate all those ins and outs of the tax code in this place. And I would say if you are trying to sell your business, it takes a little while to get everything prepared before you can do it. So your business should be a part of your retirement plan, but it shouldn't be the retirement plan.
You want to make sure you know what you're doing as you get ready to relieve yourself of that business. Think of it kind of like a road trip as you're taking. As you get closer and closer to your destination, you may have it on cruise control for a while, or just kind of go down the interstate, not really paying attention, staying the course. As you get closer and closer to your destination, though, you want to put your hands on the wheel. You want to take charge and make sure you're aware of the situation so that you can get there safely. Same sort of thing as you get closer and closer. And if you have, turned your business into a successful property, congratulations. As you get closer and closer, you want to make sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, to continue that road trip analogy. This is where having a roadmap comes into play, a retirement roadmap comes into play, to make sure that, you are taking into account that silent partner that you have in the form of Uncle Sam, who will not be silent once you sell, or, making sure that you get to stick the landing. I know I'm using a lot of analogies here, but you want to make sure that it's all done properly. The team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, they can help you out with that to get started. Set up a time to speak with them. As a reminder, complimentary conversation. Go to welcomehomefp.com. Give a call, 804-635-3550. Okay. Perhaps you are not a small business owner. Regardless of where you are in retirement, you are going to need income, and a lot of people utilize annuities for that. They've come a long way from what your parents or your grandparents bought. Back then, high commissions often benefited the seller more than retirees, giving the products the bad reputation that sticks with them to this day. But Morningstar analyst Don Phillips says it's time to rethink that because, annuities have evolved.
People think of investing as a game, and who ends up with the highest pile of cash wins that game. But you really need to realize that investing is a means to an end. And things like annuities are something that fit into that and can be a very helpful part of giving people greater security. And to me, the whole reason that you help people with investing is that you give them that kind of security, that stability, so that they can know that their financial future is firm, so that then they can go and pursue their dreams, do the things that really matter to them.
Now, earlier in the show, we talked about the importance of having growth in your plan, but also the fact that it's not all you need to focus on. Where do annuities fit in when the goal is more stability and confidence and not just growth?
Well, annuities aren't designed to win any type of performance contest against every other investment, right? Mm-hmm. Their potential role is generally about transferring certain risk and creating more predictable or income within a retirement strategy. But that also brings up the point that they're not also appropriate for everyone either, right? I know that annuities have, we call it the A word, of course, but annuities have different meanings to different people. But different annuities do have different cost restrictions, guarantees, different purposes. I mean, there's a lot there. And that's why I think a portfolio review is very valuable. So then we could sit down with you and take a look, see what you already have, right? If you already have 2 annuities, is it appropriate to have a 3rd annuity? Who knows, right? But that's why it's all about the strategy. And if you need income, and if that's your biggest risk or your biggest concern, we could determine whether the annuity is a good strategy for you. So once again, annuities, they have a really bad rap. I think they could be a very useful tool, but it's not the end all be all.
Think about Social Security. Guess what? That is an annuity. Okay, it's just not called an annuity because it's coming from the government. But, why does everybody think it's so valuable to them? Because the check keeps coming. No matter what happens, it keeps coming. Now, they're going to make some changes every once in a while, but we don't have any control over that. We can't deal with that. And that's the biggest thing that people need to know in retirement. You need income, period. The end. And how much depends on you and where you are and what's going on. But, your 401k only gives you a pile of money. It gives you a statement saying this is what it is that you've got right now, but it didn't come with any instructions on how to make that into a paycheck.
Right.
So that's the thing that we sit down and talk to people about, and annuities couldn't be a part of it. Doesn't have to be all of it, but that it could be a good part of the analogy of saying, hey, I still need income. Okay. Growth helps you build your retirement, but income and stability allows you to live the life you've always dreamed.
And that's really what it's all about, regardless of what your retirement looks like, what your ideal retirement looks like. I don't think you want to see a reduction in lifestyle than where you are right now. If anything, you probably want to be able to enjoy it a bit more. And here's the truth of it. Things cost money. You're going to need money. Income is key in retirement. No longer comes from your employer, unless you've got the luxury of a pension. If you do, congratulations. If not, there are ways to replicate that using things perhaps like an annuity. But as Ralph and Tim said, it's not right for everybody out there. As fiduciaries, as independents, they are going to create plans that work in your best interest, not in the insurance company's best interest, not in Ralph and Tim's best interest, but they're going to present the information to you and say, this is what we think is going to work for you. Perhaps that is utilizing an annuity. Perhaps it's not. But at the end of the day, it's your decision to make. That all begins with a conversation with them, setting up a complimentary time to speak with them, start developing that retirement roadmap together. 804-635-3550 is the phone number, whether it is a second opinion on your plan right now, it's a first opinion on your plan right now. They're here for you. 804-635-3550. You can go online to the website, welcomehomefp.com. But as always, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Take care of one another out there. Ralph, watch out for those bears, I'm telling you. But appreciate the time as always. Gentlemen, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, we didn't talk about last weekend, but this past weekend we had one of our other events over at Colonial Downs. So we had some clients come out and some of their friends and community members, and just had a really good time, talked a little bit of shop a little bit, and just had some good times. But I think that's important to try to get into the community and see how we can help, because there's a lot of folks that don't seek that opportunity, right? They don't seek that advice or what have you. And it's like what we had talked about today about, taking a look at the overall portfolio. When was the last time you had a performance review of what your strategies currently are, if you have strategies? So once again, we would love the opportunity to bring you into one of the 3 offices around the area and sit down and see where you're at and see if things need to be improved or things are going really well, or what other opportunities potentially are out there. So once again, give us a shout. We'll get you into one of the offices, and thank you for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia, or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.